Me personally, as Yoshida, unless the CEO says, Yoshida, you need to leave, and even then, I think I'm going to fight him. Or if like the development team, the operations team want to kick me out, or if I, God forbid, die, those are the only extreme cases I would even consider leaving the 14 project. I want to continue working on Final Fantasy 14, so your continued support will definitely be appreciated.
というわけでですね、まず今回その10年さらにこう14をせっかくねここまで日本初のそのサービスでこの規模まで来れるってなかなかあることじゃないので、この先の10年に向けてまずは 7.0 をめがけて、新しいことに挑戦していこうと思ってます。
So of course, with this title, and considering that this game was launched from a Japanese development studio and being able to expand to this global scope, it's a rarity, I think. And so my next goal, my future goal, is now looking at 7.0 and leading up to that, what can we do?
コメントが7.0って言ったかで
大丈夫大丈夫、もうシナリオ会議の1回目やったから、合宿やったから、7.0 はやるよ。
People are already speculating about, oh no, 7.0 confirmed? Well, I mean, we are already talking about scenario for 7.0. I'm not afraid to say that we do intend on doing a 7.0.
まずここに向けてちょっとコンセプトを話をさせてもらいます。まずその一つ目がこちらになります。
Now, that being said, I do want to establish what my thinking is and the concept behind what we're trying to do leading up to 7.0. And this is the first point.
まあこれ具体的にどういうことっていうのはこの後ちゃんとお話ししようと思います。
And of course, I will go into detail as to what this exactly means.
そしてですね、7.0 に向けて、チャレンジとしてですね、こちら、第1次グラフィックスのアップデートの準備開発っていうのをやっていきます。
And then next, again, leading up to 7.0, and one of the challenges that we want to take on is our first graphical update, at least the preparation and the development for it.
まあ、なんで第一次ってついてるかっていうのも後でねこの項目の掘り下げでちょっとお話ししようと思います。
And of course, when we dive into each of these different points, I will touch upon why we are calling this the first graphical update.
まあ一応先に言っとくコメントが結構多いんで7.0 で PS4 が遊べなくなるってことはないです、それはないのでお約束しておきます。
I do want to clarify though, because I am seeing a lot of comments wondering about this. This does not necessarily mean that we are ceasing the support for PS4 as of 7.0. So I do want to clear that out first.
そしてですね、今日3つ目、せっかくなのでパッチ 6.x シリーズでどんなことをやっていくかというのもお知らせします。
And then the third point, I mean, since we are here, I would like to take the opportunity to cover what we are planning to do throughout the 6.x series as a sort of roadmap.
はい、では各項目、詳しくよりお伝えしていこうと思います。
Okay, diving into the details.
まずコンセプトの一つ目ですね。一人でもみんなでも遊べる RPG へ、さらなる進化をしていきますと。
So our first concept, an even better RPG, alone or with friends.
これ何かというとですね、読んで字のごとくなんですけど、そのファイナルファンタジー14一応ジャンルとしては MMORPG って呼ばれてます。
So I mean, it is what it says, of course, but yes, I understand that Final Fantasy 14 as a game genre would be categorized as an MMORPG.
そこでですね、僕この11年ファイナルファンタジー14をやってきて、世界中のプレイヤーの皆さんとイベントだったりファンフェスも含めてですけど、本当たくさんのゲーマーの人たちと話をしてきました。
And of course, throughout the 11 years of doing Final Fantasy XIV, we did various events, gaming events, including Fan Festival, and I had the opportunity to speak with the different gamers.
そこでですね、あとそのマーケティングチームに市場調査とかをしてもらって、これね定期的に拡張のたびにやってるんですけど、やっぱりこうそこで出てくる答えっていうのが、なかなかブレイクスルーできないなっていうのがあったりします。
And of course, I would have my marketing teams perform market research as well. And this is something we regularly do when we start to plan for upcoming expansion packs. And with the information that we receive, and there's always like a question that we never seem to find a way to break through.
2つあって、1つはファイナルファンタジーシリーズ大好きなんだよ、すごいファンなんだ、全部やってるよ、ただし11と14以外ねっていうのがめちゃくちゃ悔しい。
So there's actually two, and one of them is we see there's a lot of players that love Final Fantasy, and many that claim they've played all of the Final Fantasies except for 11 and 14, which is very frustrating.
11もね今かなりアップデートをかけてかなり大部分ねソロで遊べるように快適にしてますが、14はさらにその先へ行きたいと思ってます。
And of course, we are paying attention to Final Fantasy 11 players as well, and we've made various updates. I think it has become very solo friendly recently, but with Final Fantasy 14, we want to go beyond that.
あとはこうもう一つはですね、オンラインなんだよね、めんどくさい、人と遊ぶの嫌、なんかこう人間関係作るの嫌っていうのがですね、やっぱりナンバーワンなんですよね、そのプレイをしない理由っていうところで。
The second point we are trying to reach a breakthrough is people who comment about, oh, online play, I don't want to deal with having to play with other people. I don't want to develop relationships online. And that's actually a very large reason, if not the number one reason, many players kind of hesitate playing 14.
だから10年かけて MMORPG っていうジャンルじゃなくて、一人でもみんなでも遊べる RPG っていうジャンルにしたいと14を。
So what I want to do here is spend the next 10 years and break out of that MMORPG category. I want this to be an RPG that can be enjoyed alone or with friends.
まずなので、7.0 でまでの間、フェイスシステムの大規模アップデートっていうのをやっていきます。
So, as a lead up to 7.0, or until that time, we will continue to make updates to the trust system.
パッチ 6.1 から 6.5 までの5つのメジャーパッチで全メインクエストの必須 ID と4人用の透滅戦を全てフェイス対応します。
So as it says here, trust compatibility for all main scenario dungeons and 4-player trials to be added in patch 6.1 through 6.5.
順次なのでね、パッチ例えば 6.2 とかを見ると中途半端なところまでしか対応されてないとかいうことがある可能性は高いんですけど、それにね怯えているといつまでたってもできないので全部一気には不可能なので、もうなのでこの 6.1 から 6.5 つまり 7.0 までの間を次に飛び上がるためにもうどんどん順次やっていくという期間に当てさせてください。
And so, of course, these are going to be incremental implementation. And so you might look at, say, patch 2 point something and 6.2, and you might notice that maybe not all of the dungeons have been supported with a trust system compatibility. But if we are afraid to make progress and be just in the middle of work in a certain major patch update, we won't be able to make progress. I think it's impossible to do everything at once. So we are trying to address this as we can, and we're looking at this as a preparation for 7.0. And so we would like to ask for your understanding as we lay these foundations.
その第1弾となるパッチ 6.1 では新生オールゼア編のうち、2.0 範囲を全て対応します。
So the first implementation, patch 6.1, will make a Realm Reborn, and this is just patch 2.0 range, and the scenarios duty become trust compatible.
そしてですね、それに伴って一部初期のですねメインクエスト ID とか、透滅戦もリニューアルします。
And then further improvements will be made to some low-level main scenario dungeons and trials.
でちょっと注意なんですけど、蒼天の石ガルドに入ってからの8人透滅戦ストーリー上に出てくるあれらはちょっとやっぱりコストを全見積もりしたんですけど、どうしてもこう 6.1 から 6.5 までの期間では対応しきれないので、8人の透滅戦に関しては 7.0 以降順次対応していくつもりです。
You may see the disclaimers on the bottom, but for the 8-player trials, especially those with the Heaven's Word expansion, I'm afraid we are unable to update it at this time. We tried to calculate all the cost and the resources that it would take for us to address all of this within that sort of 6.1 through 6.5 timing, but I'm afraid we would be unable to allocate the resources for it. So we will get to it after 7.0. Yeah, these updates will be considered for 7.0 or later.
まあもちろん皆さんご存知の通り、その通常のねマッチングがなくなるわけじゃないので、あくまでストーリーを一人で進めていきたいっていう人のための機能なので、レベリングルーレットだったりねマッチングっていうところはそのまま継続していくので、そこはご承知おきください。
And of course, we don't intend to do away with the regular matching systems. Your leveling dungeons and queue matching and duty finders will still be active and available. These trust compatibility is primarily for those who have a strong desire to play through these story dungeons on their own.
で、ですね、8人透滅戦は今回行月のフィナーレでハイデリン透滅戦でテストケースとしても含めてやったんですけど、やれることはなんだろう確証を得られたんですけど、まあ、相当やっぱりコストがかかるっていうのと、ギミックから調整していかないといけないっていうこともあって、まずは数の多い ID から優先させていただいてます。あとはね8人なんで責任半のかかり方がちょっと減るんでやっぱり、まあここは逆にマッチングの面白さみたいなところも味わってもらいたいので、一旦7.0 以降にさせてください。
And of course, with these 8-people trials or 8-person battles, we did try it out with the Mother Crystal trial, and we were able to see success as like a test case, but it did require a lot of resources for us to build it. And then if we were to start applying that system to existing dungeons, we'd have to adjust the mechanics so that it would accommodate for the trust system. So at this time, we made the decision to move forward with just the instanced dungeons. And with an 8-person trial, I think that sort of reduces the responsibility per person going into the match, hopefully. So we're hoping that players would still jump into like a duty finder and hopefully get the enjoyment out of matching up with random people. So at this time, we are unable to address it within the 6.1 through 6.5 period, but we are looking to it for 7.0 or later.
でちょっと注意なんですけど、はい、まあどうしてもフェイスっていう呼び方をすると、暁といけんのかなとか名のある NPC といけんのかなってイメージがちょっと強いと思うんですけど、ストーリー上こうそのマッチングでしかいけないからこそ、じゃあ俺は他のことをやってくるみたいなのでこうみんなちょっといなくなったりとかしてたと思うんですよ。あれまで全部変えるはさすがに無理なので特に序盤とかは冒険者ギルドのメンバーだったりとか、暁の光のなんだろうこう光の加護を持っているであろう他のメンバーみたいなイメージで組むケースが多いです。
And I want to make another point of caution here. Whenever we say trust compatibility, I think the thought that, oh, can we go into this dungeon with members of the Scions, or any sort of named NPCs? And some of these story dungeons have key players kind of leaving the scene, like where the Warrior of Light goes into a dungeon and say somebody goes up and say, "Oh, I'm going to take care of matters over there." We can't have them come back just to join you in the dungeon. So in those cases, especially the earlier dungeons, you will see your trust members as like members from the Adventurers Guild, or maybe other people who have the Echo accompany you in these dungeons.
ただまあキーになるストーリー上のキーになるポイントで、まあこいつはやっぱり本当はダンジョン一緒に行ってほしかったなってプレイヤーの皆さんが思ってるようなポイントは、シナリオ一部カットシーンも含めてちょっと変更してでもできるだけそれにまあ添えるように、やっぱりゼックと対峙するときはエスニアンも行って欲しかったなみたいなやつはできる限りそういうシチュエーションはなんとか対応していこうと思ってるので、一部ねそれもちょっと変更する部分があるかなとは思います。全部は無理なんで、はい、そこはご了承ください。
But that being said, there are certain key points in the story where we do understand players might have a very strong desire to have particular NPCs accompany you in a dungeon. So in some extreme cases, and not extreme cases, but like some key points, the team will make some adjustments. We may have to change a part of the script so that it'll make sense for the character to join you. An example I can come up with off the top of my head is probably the Nidhogg battle. I'm sure a lot of people would have thought like, oh, it would have been nice to have Estinian join as part of the Trust NPC. So we're considering having that available. So there may be some content that accommodates for certain NPCs to join you. I'm afraid we can't address all of them. We can't make it happen with all of the dungeons. So your understanding on that would be appreciated.
そしてですね、ごめんねちょっと長くて、6.1 特集パート1の時にまた詳しくお話ししようと思いますが、新生オルゼアの後半って結構今のレギュレーションと違ってしまってるこうダンジョンとかが多いので、かなり手が入ってますいろいろ。
And of course, with the details of 6.1, we will have a dedicated live letter for that, and I will delve into details at that time. But I do want to mention that much of the content, especially in the later half of ARR, differ in how the regulation is set up. So there are changes that have been made.
まあ例えばトトラクとかの、ドゥーンってなってヘビースローがかかるヘビーがかかる床とかなくなってます。
For example, like when you go into the Thousand Laws of Totorak, and you step on those like poison floors, and all of a sudden you are hit with heavy or slow, we're actually getting rid of that.
あとはちょっと Q14 から申請するのに急いで作ってちょっとライティング良くないなとかいうところのダンジョンもちょっと絵的な調整もそれなりにやってます。
And there are also some aesthetical changes that we wanted to make. There were certain areas of the earlier part of FF14 when we were trying to quickly just relaunch as a Realm Reborn. So there were areas where lighting may not have been 100% to what we would have been satisfied with. So we went back in and adjusted those as well.
そしてですね、まあ他にもですね、8人パーティーバトルの一番最初であるリッド・アッティン教習戦なんですけど、なくなります。
And then one of the first 8-person party battles that you encounter, I believe, is Camp Westwind. And I want to mention that we are doing away with that.
皆さん大ショックを受けておられますね。People are getting shocked.
帝国の盾としてね、武人として、身を挺してやってきた、ね、帝国将軍の一人、まあ将軍ではないけど正しくは 8人でフルボッコはいかがなものかということでですね、
はい
ちゃんとコストをかけてですねクエストインスタンスバトルとし
おっと
て、生まれ変わりますので。
Considering Litatine is like the shield of the Garland Empire. I mean, he's technically not a captain, but like, I mean, he's like a very prominent figure. I think it would be very humiliating for 8 people to come in and just beat him up. So we actually allocated the resources to rebuild that battle so that it's going to be a quest instanced battle that you go in.
まあ他にも内閣外閣と呼ばれている8人ダンジョン、あれらもですね今回すべて4人用 ID に作り直してあります。
And then, of course, the Praetorium and the Castrum Meridian. Sorry, I can't pronounce it. Meridianum. Meridianum. Those very long Guardian bases that you need to go. They were originally 8-person content, but we are going to be changing it so that these are 4-person instanced dungeons.
なのでアルテマウェポン戦も切り出して、4人用としてシナリオモードを作って、であとラハブレアが憑依したサンクレットさんを8人でただひたすら無言で殴るっていうのもストーリー用のクエストインスタンスバトルとして作り直してるので
大工事ですね。
はい。
And so your battle with Ultima, or the Ultima weapon, will be changed to a 4-person battle. We are adjusting the scenario mode for that. And then where you go in and silently beat up La Habrea, aka Thancred being possessed by La Habrea, is also going to be adjusted so that it's like an instance during a story quest.
というわけで、まあそんな風にコストもですねレギュレーション今のプレイフィールにできるだけ近づけられるように、いろんな改修をしつつですねパッチ 6.1 から 6.5 にかけて、4.x までの ID ですね、全部対応していこうと思いますので、よろしくお願いします。
So, yeah, in a nutshell, we are going in and making many adjustments so that it fits with kind of follows suit better with how the game feels at this time. So throughout patch 6.1 through 6.5, we will be looking at the various content up to the 4.x series, the different instance dungeon to make adjustments.
さあではこのセクション以上で次へ行きたいと思います。
So moving on to the next section.